So I have known Nikos for about 35 years, a long time, from my banking days. And I've watched with admiration how he has built his shipping business. He seems to know what kind of ships to buy. He knows when to buy and when to sell. He knows when to expand his fleet, and also, which is quite rare, when to retreat the fleet. He's mostly bought vessels, which I would say anyway, are not typically on the list of most Greek ship owners, but he has the ability to identify vessels which could be acquired at attractive prices and have very good upside. Today, of course, Nikos is founder and chairman of Contships Management, a very successful operator of 35 container feeder vessels, and as we all know, that sector of the market is currently in very high demand. But let's go a little bit back to the beginning. So Nikos, I know you're very proud of the Pateras family origins from Inousses. And can you tell us a few things about those very early days?
Okay, so our family comes from Inousses, a very small island between Chios and Çeşme, Turkey. In mid-1700s, Father John, who was a priest, was our patriarch, who had 5 sons. So our name comes from a priest, Pateras. Now, his sons were basically the family tree of the Pateras and Haji Pateras family, which has been in shipping for over 150 years and has gone into the shipping sector because there was absolutely nothing else to do in our island. They started with small caiques, then they moved on to bigger ships, gradually from sailing ships to steamships, and we are where we are today. So I'm very proud of that.
Thank you. So when you were young, your father Diamantis and your uncle John had the company Pateras Brothers. So was that a kind of a typical family, shipping family, where you were hearing shipping your breakfast, lunch, and dinner?
Yes. After the First and Second World War, we had to restart because we lost everything. So Pateras Brothers was created by my father and uncle in 1957. After the war, our 2 Liberty ships were managed by Stavros Livanos in London. And this is why when we moved to Athens in Piraeus, our first office was in Livanos building in Aktimiaouli. So we had continuous discussions on shipping in the house and also during holidays, but it was pleasant. It was not like forceful discussions. I came into the office early because my father used to take me to the office on Saturdays. Back in the 70s, people worked on Saturdays. So I fell in love with the ships, with the whole atmosphere, and I was quite certain from an early age that I would continue the family legacy.
Okay, and then you eventually joined your father and uncle at Pateras Brothers after you finished your studies in the UK. And at a very early age, you had the idea, actually, then, which turned out to be brilliant, to pursue distressed vessels, which were being sold by mortgagees. And my question is, whether your father and your uncle were also convinced by this strategy, and tell us about some of the discussions you had and how you sort of went about those first moves.
So we're taking a trip down memory lane. Okay, so initially, after I finished the Polytechnic in London, I came here to do my military service. And during that time, shipping was facing one of the worst crises of the century.
What year was that, Nikos?
That was in 1984.
Yeah.
So where I was basically stationed in Scaramanga, you could see the ships laid up all the way to Elefsis. There were more than 1,000 ships laid up. So this was basically a blessing in disguise because I moved into the industry at a very difficult time. And I would go to the office when I had time off from the Navy, and people were depressed. Most of the ships were laid up. Big families had financial problems, and all this, I think, was very beneficial for me because I didn't come into the industry during buoyant times like today, during booming times, but I came into the industry during difficult times, and this helped me over the next 35 years. So going back to how I started, we had 2 reefer ships which were laid up, 2 handy-sized bulk carriers which were laid up, and 2 MPPs which were trading. So the only ships that were trading were the MPPs. So I told my father and uncle we should scrap the reefer vessels and the bulk carriers, and that they should give me some seed money in order to go out and try and find some newer ships to acquire. They believed in the idea, so they supported me. I noticed back then in Lloyd's list that the Banco de Crédito Industrial in Spain had arrested about 90 to 100 ships from Spanish ship owners that were built in Spain under subsidies. So I took a plane, I went to Madrid, and I stayed there for a week asking for a meeting. So every time I would, meet the people at the bank, I was being ignored because the Spaniards wanted to sell their vessels internally. In any case, on the last day that I was in Madrid, I was called to visit the headquarters of the bank, and I was told that they would only give me the opportunity to buy 10 ships, a block of 10 ships, because an American company at the time had offered to buy 40 of their ships in one block. It was very difficult to buy 10 ships because my actual capital from my father and uncle was $2 million. In any case, they gave me the list. I picked the 10 ships that I thought were, most attractive. I mean, just to give you an example, you could buy a general cargo ship, which was 5 years old, for $2 million back then. So I signed 11 contracts. I had money to put up the deposit, but I didn't have money, of course, to take delivery of the ships. I went back to Geneva to see my father, who told me that I should be sent to prison. I went to Paris to see my uncle, who embraced me and said that was a brilliant idea. So I had, the 2 heads of the family with a different opinion. We started taking delivery of these vessels because the auction process in Spain takes a year. And by the time that we took delivery of the first ship, we were able to sell it at 2 or 3 times, higher than what it was acquired. So in a very short period of time, between 1986 and 1989, these 11 ships brought in about $25 million in profit. So this made my father and uncle believe more in me. I want to stress here that A, I thought that this is a low-risk business because the ships were close to scrap, and B, I'm overall quite conservative. I don't like big investments, so they understood that it was not a gamble, it was a calculated risk. Now, after this fleet was liquidated, I started acquiring vessels that, as you said before, were not easily sourced, vessels that belonged to liner companies that went bankrupt, vessels that belonged to governmental companies like a Cuban liner company, Czechoslovakian liner company. I didn't even know that the Czechoslovakians had a fleet. So I would go out and source deals that were not really in the market. And back then it was much easier because you didn't have Google, where everyone knows everything at a minute's notice. And then I decided in 1993, at the age of 30, to start my own company, Pacific and Atlantic.
Very good. And Pacific and Atlantic again, I mean, you at that time you were aged only about 30, so you were still very young. And you were on your own now without your father and your uncle. I mean, how did you feel then? I mean, was there a plan or did the business just evolve? I mean, how did you sort of feel getting into things on completely on your own?
Well, initially it was hard because it's different knowing that you have your family support when you go out on your own. It's more difficult, but it was also a blessing because once you're on your own, you learn how to survive on your own without having any assistance. So Pacific and Atlantic did quite well. Between 1993 and 2007, we acquired about 110 ships in total, uh, different types of ships, from multi-purpose vessels to handy-sized bulk carriers to Panamaxes. I ran into trouble in 2001 or two because of the Asian crisis. I mean, there was a moment we had like 55 ships in the water, and we were losing like maybe 5 million a month. So the market did its, U-turn all of a sudden due to the Chinese boom, and it picked up rapidly. And in between 2007, 6 and 7, I sold the entire fleet for around 500 million. And after that, I took a 2-year sabbatical and then reinvested again between 2010 and 2015 in different types of ships, Panamaxes, handy-size. I would say that it was a very unsuccessful venture because we didn't make any money during these 5 years from these ships, and then started Contships.
Okay. Can I go just back 1 minute? I mean, you said that you basically liquidated the entire fleet.
Yeah.
And you took a sabbatical for 2 years. At that point, did you close the office? Did you keep your staff? What did you do?
No, we kept the office, and out of 120 people, we kept basically around 40 people for 2 years, who were the same people who continued to run the new investments that came in after 2010.
Okay, and then as you say, Contships was born. And you decided to identify container feeder vessels as the niche to pursue. And again, this was because you saw a sector in distress, but with interesting upside. And again, you were an active buyer from banks with vessels in distress. Tell us a little bit about that experience.
Well, we asked McKinsey, who are here, to make a report on the container feeder market. I targeted the container feeder vessels because they are less volatile to market fluctuations. Back then, they were less volatile than the bigger Panamax or even larger ships. So a container feeder vessel between cargoes would remain basically inactive for 5 to 10 days. On a Panamax, you risk having a ship without employment for 6 months before you could find the next employment. So then the feeder vessels are used to go to ports which don't have the necessary draft or other facilities. And overall, I thought it's a much safer investment. We bought a total of 65 vessels from mainly German owners and German administrators, banks. 50 of them were from German administrators and banks. And we believed at the time that there was a big potential, but we suffered between 2017 and 19. We suffered because the market took a downturn. And again, we were losing money for 2 years. Then, of course, COVID came. There was a reshaping of the supply chain, and the market boomed. And, of course, we turned out to be very lucky and successful. Now, one of the German ship owners who we bought ships from told me that because Contships had bought so many ships from distressed ship owners and administrators between 2015 and 2019, I was not very popular in Germany. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
Okay. Well, you made so much upside, which they didn't make, I suppose. Tell me, during the time you started Pacific Atlantic in '93 and up until, let's say, 2020, when things changed, was there any point that you almost didn't make it, that the market was against you so much that you were sort of in danger of perhaps losing your business?
yeah, between 2000 and 2002, when the market was in a bad state, I had to actually ask all my banks to refinance my loans, and I had to ask my father to lend me 5 million. So that was like a support in order to get through the crisis. And of course, the market boomed after that.
Sure.
I returned the money to my father. Yeah. So it all turned out quite well.
With interest, I hope.
No interest. No.
Okay.
He didn't ask for interest.
Okay, and then in the last 12 months, again, you've taken a new direction in terms of your financing by raising $175 million from the Norwegian bond market. Can you tell us a little bit about that experience and why Norway made sense now rather than your relationship banks?
Well, some of my relationship banks are here, and they're quite pissed off that we repaid back all our loans and we're debt-free. But as I told them, it's beneficial, and we're there to do business again in the future. I'm looking specifically at that gentleman there from the National Bank of Greece,
Okay.
who was quite upset. So, in any case, the bond market, the Norwegian investors are very educated. They know shipping very well. It takes a very short period of time if you are a company with a corporate structure to do a high-yield bond or even do an IPO in Norway. And I thought it was a good idea to do a high-yield bond as a first step to a possible IPO in the Norwegian market. So we were successful in raising 175 million. We have only invested 75 million in certain projects. So we have another 100 million which we're looking to invest in new deals. And we're very optimistic because the market continues to do very well in containers and especially in feeders. I mean, just imagine, Kevin, that when I was buying feeders, I mean, I remember I bought from Rickmes in the summer of 2018, 4 or 6 vessels, 1,000 TEU, 7-year-old ships. I paid for them maybe 20 million.
Yeah.
So then these ships were sold 20 million each, plus they each made maybe $5 to $7 million profit from trading.
Yeah.
So I don't think we're ever going to see this coming back unless it's going to be a big crisis again, which will only be caused by oversupply.
Yeah, exactly. But you seem to have done it again and again. I mean, you were buying twin deckers and you were buying sort of unwanted ships, and then you bought this sort of you went into the kind of container niche sector. So what's next? That's what I'm going to ask you. I mean, what should we all be investing in since you're so good at doing it?
You mean the future?
Yeah.
No, in the future we're going to grow Contships. Contships today is a leader in the container feeder segment between 900 to 1,500 TEU. All charterers show a preference to our ships because we deliver very reliable services. Feedering is extremely difficult business. Our ships reach 5,000 ports a year. We carry 1.5 million containers, and we are 24/7 alert because it's not like you take a ship from Shanghai and you bring it over to Pateras. Our ships, for example, can do inter-regional trade in the Caribbean and have to go into different ports every 24 hours. So it's a very delicate and difficult trade, and charterers appreciate our performance.
Exactly. Tell me, Nico, you've been linked to new buildings, but you've never actually ordered one. Might this change in the future?
I believe that, my opinion always is that it's better to have a ship in the water rather than wait for a ship to be delivered in 2 or 3 years' time. So I have acquired resale new buildings from other ship owners that the ships were in the water. Now, we decided as Contships to design a ship which is called Contships Max 1300, and we went out to receive quotations from shipyards to build 20 of these ships. The prices were too high. I mean, this was like 3 months ago. We decided to put the project on hold and wait until, prices become more realistic again.
But do you believe that'll happen? And I mean, is there an indication that this might happen in the next 2, 3 years?
Shipping is cyclical. I mean, it's up and down like everything else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell me, you mentioned an IPO. I mean, how likely? I mean, you're a pretty sort of reserved guy. You don't really like, until now anyway, the public eye. I mean, is an IPO something that you're seriously considering?
Right now, no, but it's something that we may do over the next 1 or 2 years. Right now, no.
Okay, fantastic. Let's just finish then, if you don't mind, by asking a couple of personal questions. I mean, I know you're a religious man. Can you tell me how that has helped you and influenced your career and your life?
Well, we are a religious family. I mean, in Inusas, We have our own monastery, which was built by Katingo Patera, which was the sister of Marcos Lemos. So we have deep roots in religion. And one of the things that I like doing is rebuilding or renovating churches around Greece, in central Greece or the islands. And recently, only last year, we renovated the church of St. Nicholas in the center of Athens, which the government, with the Church of Greece, donated to our patriarch in Constantinople. And now this is their main church in Athens. After 150 years, the patriarch finally has a church in Athens.
Okay. And you're also a family man, of course. You have a son and a daughter already in the business. I mean, is it a dream perhaps one day, many years from now, that you may step down and have your children follow in your footsteps?
I hope they will. My daughter is in the legal department of Contships, and my son is deputy CFO.
Okay, thank you. And finally, a generous man as well, because I know you have a foundation and you make various donations to society. Why do you find that important?
I think that everyone wants to give back to society, and I'm doing exactly the same thing. I mean, once you are able to have enough wealth to share, I think you should share it. And you should give to people who are, more needy than you are. I just want to mention here that I know Kevin for 35 years. When I met him initially, he was a shy banker working for Royal Bank of Scotland. Yeah. And then over the years, we became friends. Last time I saw him in my office, he had a ponytail and he looked quite ridiculous. And I'm very happy he invited me here today, because we didn't speak about, finance or bunkers or ESG and so on. We went down a trip in memory lane, and it was very pleasant. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Nico. It was a privilege for me to interview you today, and thank you very much for coming.
Thanks, everyone, for listening.
Thank you.